Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. As many of you know, you're here because you're looking to buy a new car. You just want to learn more about the car buying process. And as women, sometimes that can be daunting and intimidating. So, for Women's History Month, we decided to put on this event after receiving some feedback from our customers that just kind of expressed that they would have liked to know more about the car buying process so they could feel confident when they came into the dealership. So, that is how we came up with this event today. I don't know if all of you know this, but 85% of car purchases are influenced by women. So it's really important that we know what we're doing when we walk into a dealership. So I'm going to pass it over to Susan, who is our new car sales manager. And then Sam will follow up after to go into the used car buying process. And feel free to ask questions throughout if this is a very comfortable space to ask questions at conversations.
Please stop us anytime if we say something you don't understand, because that is not our intent. So put your hands up, yell. We don't care. So how many people have tried to buy a car by themselves? Okay, so have you ever walked in and they ask you for your social security number? First thing. They will. So if you do, that's not a good sign. Never give them your social security number until you say, that is the car I want to go home with, because all they're doing is running your credit to see if you're able to afford the car. So it's bait and switch. So don't ever do that. I had a young gentleman, he'd been to 4 stores, and the first thing he said to me was, aren't you going to ask me for your social security number? And I said, absolutely not. I said, young man, where have you been today and what have you done? And 4 times he'd had his credit pulled that day. Know your own bank rates before you get to the dealership. So call your bank, say, what are your auto loans? Because that'll give you a parameter on what you should on percentage rates if you're financing. Say they're 4.9. The dealership the car manufacturer may have a better rate. We do right now on Outbacks, it's 2.9. The going rate's about 4.9. So those are the kind of things you want to know. When you're signing the paperwork, please look at the numbers and make sure it matches what they told you. In the past 2 months, I've had 2 people come in with cars that were much higher than what they were told they were paying. So you need to check your paperwork when you're going through that. Does that make sense? So details. You're all ladies. If you walk in and the hair on the back of your neck stands up, turn around and walk out. There are other car dealerships. There's no car that you need on that lot that needs to be bought that day. Take 24 hours. They can hold the car for you for 24 hours. There's no need to rush through that. Do you have anything to add, Sam?
Same. Exactly right. What you said.
Leases versus buying. Anybody interested in leasing? Leasing is great if you want to have a car under warranty. 3 years, 36 months is the sweet spot. So you're under warranty the whole time. You can turn it in. It keeps your payments low because you're basically renting the car for 3 years. So if the car is $40,000 and the car is going to be worth $26,000 when the lease is over, you'll pay that $14,000 plus taxes and a few fees in there. But you basically rent that car, turn it back in, and they're hoping to sell that car at a mild profit there. So great if you want to have a new car every 3 years and you don't want to pay the bigger payment on financing. Buying cash, same thing. If you decide you want to write a check for a car, you come in, this is financing as well. Get a price for the car itself. No trade-in, no other things, just the price of the car. So you've now established that the car you were looking at, Ford something, and it was 40 and they're selling it to you for 36,000. You know the price of the car. If you have a trade-in, that is a separate transaction. Have them give you a price on the trade-in. Then you have those 2 numbers. That also gives you bargaining power to go to somebody else and see if you can do a little bit better. Carvana, CarMax, any of those places. Sam will tell you, as you know, when you trade in a used car for used car, ladies, there is no tax savings. If you trade in a used car on a new car, you get to take your trade-in amount, let's call it $10,000, and your car is $40,000. You only pay taxes on the $30,000. So that can be a huge savings. Your 7.5%, that's $750. So it is, you can calculate that when you're doing your trade if somebody actually offers you more money for your trade-in to accommodate for that. Gap insurance. This is probably the most important thing I can go over tonight. What is gap insurance? Sam will also have gap down there.
Very important.
So when you buy a car, you're going to have your price of the car at 30. Your taxes at $32.50, so you're now up to $32,500. Financing, so you owe what you owe for the finance on that. If you go out and God forbid somebody hits you and totals the car, and the insurance company gives you 28,000, you owe 36. GAP covers that difference right there. So if you put $10,000 down on that car, you don't need GAP because the car will always be worth more than the payoff is. That's the most important thing to if your car is going to be worth more, you don't need GAP. With Chase, is who we use here, Sam uses some other ones. If you don't qualify, they won't let you sell the GAP to. So they tell you, we've had people try to buy GAP with cash. You don't need it because the car is always going to be worth more than the payoff. Are there any questions on GAP? Because that's one of the hardest things for people to understand. In some cases, you need it. In some cases, you don't. Hence the reason it can get a little confusing. We come to warranty. These cars, our cars, Ford, GM, Toyota, whoever you've got, somewhere between 44 and 50, 60 computers on them. Warranty is a personal decision. You can self-warranty, in other words, you have enough money in the bank to cover it, or you can purchase a factory warranty. It's completely up to you. I would strongly suggest to get numbers on warranties now, just because the labor rates have gone up so high, the parts have gone up so high, and it will cost you an arm and a leg. If the center console, they call it the control module, where so all your tech is now in these cars, if that comes out of that car, it can be anywhere from $3,500 to $5,500 for that alone. Don't mean to scare you all with the tech, but that's what you get when you get all the safety devices now.
Did you have a question?
You can do warranties on new cars and used. I'll let you speak to warranties on used cars. So it's 3 years, 36 on most, 5 years on this, 5 years, 60 on the powertrain. If you want to go longer than that, that's where the warranty starts coming into play. But I'll let you talk about the used car warranties.
Yeah, so used car warranties are going to be a little bit different depending per car. With mileage and year, sometimes there's only certain things offered, so that'll be a little bit different just depending on what the car has on it as far as tech and mileage and things like that. Also, we'll get into this more a little bit later, but there is a difference for like certified pre-owned warranties versus just a used car. But just like Susan said, everything is so expensive nowadays. It's never a bad idea just to get some information, even if it's something that you're considering, just so you can see, you know, what it even covers. A lot of the times you can even ask for like a sample of the contract just so you can read the details, take it home and think about it. So it's never a bad idea if you don't have the ability to pay out of pocket for a big expense should something happen. And something that kind of plays a little bit into that with used cars, not everything is going to be in perfect condition like a new car. Safety wise, they do have to fix certain things so the car is up and running and in good shape, but it doesn't cover, they don't always fix everything 100%, every little thing on a used vehicle, where you wouldn't have that, of course, on a new car. So something to keep in mind too for warranty and things like that.
Any other questions on warranties? So it's not like I went into my cat knocked over a lamp and I got to Target and they go, would you like a warranty on the lamp? And I'm like, it's $45. I don't want a warranty on the lamp, you know. On your car, could be $4,500. So it's a little different scenario. And there's sticker shock that can be involved in that. You also get options to buy tire and wheel, paint protection. Those things are valuable if you're going to keep the car 10 years. You know, Z-Bart's that's what we use here. It's paint protection. Other manufacturers use other brands. Think about it if you're a long-term keeper. If you're keeping the car 3 or 4 years, I would not pay for the Z-Bart. You can get tire and wheel, you can get windshield. Now, some of your insurance companies cover the windshield in your insurance policy. So make sure when you're talking to because the windshields, everybody's got eyesight now. That's what we call it, but the cameras, the windshields are thinner so they can see out of them. They are very expensive. How expensive are they, Ricky? So you want to make sure you've got a rider on your insurance or get the windshield protection because they have to have them calibrated. There are companies that offer lifetime warranties if you buy here. So you have to be careful with those. They can be great. but you read the fine print. If it says I'm offering you a lifetime warranty on this car, read the fine print, ladies, because that can get in where it gets tricky. Because if you go on vacation in your car and you get an oil change somewhere else, it voids that warranty. So make sure if you get the lifetime warranty at a dealership, you understand what that exactly means. Questions on that?
There's a common saying that I think both of us say. It's if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So just kind of keep that in
Yeah.
mind.
I'm going to turn this over to Sam for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So you can actually buy tire and wheel protection. So if you hit something in the road, it'll cover it for you. If you put the wheel out of round, it'll cover that, because it depends on what kind of car you're driving. The wheels themselves can be, that's the center metal part, can be $400, $500, $600 plus your tire. So these are things that'll come up, and you're under no obligation to take any of this. Just be aware that's a question you're going to face, and you need to answer those.
All right. So used cars, a lot of what Susan said applies to used cars too, but there are some different things as far as like banking, especially for us. Down here, she had mentioned that we use Chase. Down at our used car store, we use a lot of local credit unions. So there can be a lot of misinformation about what that looks like. One really important thing, a lot of people that I talk to don't know what their credit score is. So that's always something to kind of keep in mind, as she kind of mentioned earlier. So you kind of know what rate you'd qualify for. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. Talk to your bank again, like Susan said. It's always good to find out that information before going in, so you have somewhat of an idea. With buying a car, if it is your actual first purchase and you've never financed anything before, keep in mind that they may require some stipulations like proof of income, proof of, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Proof of residence, just some things like that, so they can make sure that you're able to pay back the amount of money that you're borrowing. A lot of the times they do want you to have a qualified cosigner because you are a risk to the bank because you've never borrowed money before. Really depends case by case basis, but just kind of some things to keep in mind in the back of your head as you're going into that. Any questions about any of that stuff? Some red flags to look out for, especially with used cars. If they tell you that you are not allowed to take it to have it inspected by either a mechanic that you trust or a shop, whatever the case may be, that's usually a pretty big red flag. Always ask about what kind of reconditioning was done on the car. Everybody's process is a little bit different. Not every dealership is going to fix all the cosmetic things or mechanical things like I kind of mentioned earlier. So just keep that in mind. A lot of places, another thing to kind of watch out for, because we see this a lot too, if you're going to take it to get it inspected, make sure it's somebody that you trust, because some shops will try to find something just to get money out of you as well in those kind of situations. So that's something to kind of be aware of. As far as inspection goes, there are safety requirements set by the state. So things like brakes, tires, seat belts, stuff like that. Make sure that if you see anything, be very thorough when you're test driving a car. Make sure that you're checking windows, radio, all that stuff, all the little things. It might seem kind of tedious, but things do happen. Sometimes things don't get replaced. If there's anything that needs attention, just make sure you bring that up before you kind of sign any paperwork or anything like that. So that way they don't just kind of bypass your concerns. Yes, that was on my list. Perfect. No, you're good. Totally exactly what Ricky said. If there is a promise made by anybody, make sure you have it in writing. That way they can't say, oh, well, I never told you that. So if they promise you something, make sure you have a copy of that. That way they make good on their commitment to you. Susan kind of mentioned this earlier about pushy attitudes, and like if the hair stands up on your neck, definitely walk out. Used cars are a little bit different. Sometimes a salesperson may try to guide you towards something else. If you're not sure, especially what you're looking for, just keep in mind, if they're showing you something you have zero interest in, speak up, because you don't want to waste your own time. And that probably does happen at some point. But if you're not interested in something, don't let them push you towards something that is of zero interest to you or doesn't fit your lifestyle at all. Because I had actually someone recently come in pretty upset that happened to her, and now she's having a hard time trying to find something else. So Just don't let that happen. Do's and don'ts. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just lean in here. Do your research. Susan touched on that a little bit. It's a little bit difficult with used cars, especially if you're a new driver. You don't necessarily maybe know what you want, but Consumer Reports is a great resource to look at, common issues with cars, what customers who have bought those cars are saying. So that's a good thing to take a look at. Ask if a vehicle has a salvage or rebuilt title. This is a big one. A lot of people don't. There's a reason why pricing on vehicles can be drastically different. A lot of the times it's because a salvage title car will be less expensive. It's because it's been in a major accident and declared a total loss by the insurance company. So keep that in mind. That's a big one. Always ask for a Carfax or auto check so you can see the history of the car, see what maintenance has been done, how it's been owned in the past. Any questions about any of that stuff? Yeah.
You get full insurance coverage on a salvage title.
Oh, that's a good question.
You have to call around. Not all insurance company will offer that. So there are a couple out there, but that's correct. Because if it's a salvage title, they usually won't insure it. So that gets to be a problem, which hence the reason brings the price down. You also can't usually finance salvage titles. It has to be a cash deal.
That's a good thing to keep in mind also when shopping for a car. Keep that in mind when you're purchasing something used because insurance on vehicles can vary. So it's good to call your insurance company ahead of time if you're looking at something specific. Susan touched on this earlier. Don't sign anything that doesn't make sense. Basically, make sure that they're going through line item. We do it. Make sure that you can understand everything that's in front of you. If you have questions, stop and ask. There are dealerships out there that will put added things in there that don't need to be. So make sure that you're fully understanding what it is that you're signing. And there's nothing extra that doesn't need to be added.
That's where that 24 hours comes in, and it's vital because you can take it home and put your price and put your taxes in and use the payment calculators online and go, here's what my total payment should look like. And this should be my total out the door. And you can go, oh, why is there $2,400 that somehow got put in there? It's because they've packed it with something else. So you need to be aware of that. So check your numbers to make sure they're correct. And you can do that with payment calculators on different websites.
Yeah, purchases can be very overwhelming and it's exciting too. So it's easy to miss things when you're kind of in the moment, excited to get a car. So it's always a good thing to kind of take a step back, maybe have a second set of eyes review everything for you so you're not missing anything. Certified pre-owns versus used is always a big thing with us down at 217. There are two differences. Certified pre-owns are vehicles that are inspected and refurbished and certified by the manufacturer. So, for example, you couldn't buy a certified Honda from a Subaru dealership. You can only buy a certified Subaru from a Subaru store. We get that question a lot. Those vehicles are they are held to a pretty high standard as far as their inspection goes. They usually come with incentivized rates. They also usually get manufacturer's warranty coverage included on that. So that's a good perk of looking at a certified pre-owned. They also, depending on the manufacturer, usually have to be within 5 years of age for Subarus. They're under 80,000 miles, no major accidents. Typically cars that were either owned for a few years or they were a vehicle that came off a lease. So comparing that to used vehicles, a lot of the time as far as warranty goes, they'll be sold as is, which depending on the dealership, their qualifications may be different, but that means there's no warranty included. Some dealerships do offer limited dealer warranties and those terms will differ. You just kind of have to pay attention to what that is. That'll be like a case by case basis. Cosmetic stuff on used cars, usually there will be, depending on the year of the car, that's kind of to be more expected. If you're just comparing that to a certified pre-owned, you'll usually find more scratches, things like that. It just depends. Every dealership's reconditioning process is different. So they're not all apples to apples comparison. You just have to find what works best for you. And price points, of course, are going to be different on certified pre-owns. They usually run more expensive because they're newer cars versus used. That's all I got.
Pricing. So if you're looking at new, then so definitely get price quotes from 3 different dealerships so you know where you are. saying, hey, I got this from dealership A, I got this from dealership B, I got this from dealership C. Call them back and say, here's what I've got, show them what you've got and see if they're willing to work. Because if you like one, usually they'll match if they've got the car on the lot. So don't be afraid to ask that question. It's vital to get, if you get a chance to do that. For the ladies who just joined us, the hair on the back of your head stands up when you go in a dealership. There are other dealerships. You'll know. Don't go there. There's usually, it's almost always correct. Questions for us? There are no dumb questions.
I do want to mention one quick thing about pricing because it gets brought up a lot with used cars. We do have a lot of times people ask if we can match a used car price to another used car price. That's not really a situation that is, unless they were completely identical, which never happens. There are a lot of things that are taken into consideration with pricing on used cars. Market value, first of all, the mileage on the car, the package options. There's no two cars that are the same, so just keep that in mind. A lot of the times people, they'll tell you no, they're not going to match because it's not like new cars where you could get the same color, same package, same year, they're the same car. So just something to keep in mind.
These cars, right? You know that you can like buy a car and like get it built.
You can order it. So it's nice to order a car exactly because you can put on the accessories you want. And then the accessories that they put on in the factory, you don't have to pay for, which is awesome. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with ordering a car built the way you want it. You can't usually change the colors anymore. So you have to pick a color on the lot, but then you're not paying for, if you don't want auto dimming mirrors, you don't have to pay for them. If you don't want body side moldings, those kind of things. So.
Would it be hard?
Oh no. Honestly, most people, when they're buying the car, they're just looking at the car itself. So, and the history. Do your oil changes.
Yeah.
Make sure you go somewhere where they put them on the Carfax report so you can see the oil changes have been done.
How long does it take to get a car that you order?
So it depends on the manufacturer. During COVID,
Long time.
I mean, I don't know if they had one little guy in the back room beating on metal by himself, but it was 8-9 months. I'm not kidding you. It was painful. Now the ones out, we have cars that come out of Lafayette, Indiana, that's 6 weeks. So not bad at all. The ones that come from Japan are 8 to 12 weeks. So it'll depend on where the manufacturer and what the transport time. The car itself building is not much different between OEMs. It's just where's it built and how long is it going to take to get here to you. Sure.
I also never get the warranty when I buy a car because I feel like from other people's experience, when something breaks down, it's always not covered by the warranty.
Correct.
So is it like only major things like the engine?
So there are a couple different kinds of warranties you can get. We have a powertrain, which is your engine, your transmission, your drive shaft, and then we have a bumper to bumper wraparound. So the things that won't be covered in any warranty are going to be oil changes, normal wear and tear, rubber, tires, those kind of things, brake pads. As you're looking, and you can get different kind of warranties on the used cars as well, figure out your financial needs and figure what fits you best. I've never had a warranty till I bought my 18 Forester and I got a warranty on it because of the electronics on it. So
Yeah, for used cars, every dealership's going to offer something different, that it's not like one blanket thing. Whereas like new cars, their standard warranty is pretty much the same through most manufacturers. So just ask questions, get as much information on what's covered, ask for a sample of the contract because it'll highlight all the details. It'll list what's not covered, what is covered. A lot of the times the people that approve those claims are looking at those contracts to approve what's the repairs on the car. So I would just get all the information that you can. If they can get you a sample of the contract, that's really beneficial. So you can take the time to look at all that's covered and not covered, what the exclusions are and things like that.
and if you are buying used, which is fine, I usually almost always buy used myself. Make sure you know your credit score and what the rates are, because if you're to buy here, pay here, that's not a good scenario, ladies. You try to avoid those if you can, because the rates will be way higher on those. So that's where you call your credit union, your own bank, and get the rates and see what they'll finance you for. So they'll say you're pre-approved for this amount, so you can go look for a car that costs this much. Do not walk in there and tell them that you have that much money. Never bring up monthly payments or how much money you're spending. You just keep it close to your chest. Say, I don't know what I'm looking for. I'm just looking at the cars right now. I'll let you know. So, but for goodness sakes, never walk in and say, I want my payment to be under $370 because they will find a way to put you in that car at $370.
And interest rates usually on used cars just by default are going to be higher. So that's something to keep in mind depending on what your budget is.
Hence the reason you talk to your bank first.
Exactly.
That has a history with you.
Yep.
So if you don't have a bank, get a bank, put a little bit of money in there and start having a relationship, whether it's Right Pat, Fifth Third, whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Why is it the interest rates are high on used cars?
It's a riskier, if the used car is riskier. So they know they can take the new car back and sell it. Used cars are already got that depreciate. Yeah.
So if you buy a new car, under warranty, do you have to take it to that dealer?
Well, Subaru, I don't know. However, I don't think I think most people's works like this. Ours are good at all 650 dealerships across the country. So you can take it anywhere. Even some of Canada is covered if they take the USA warranty. So if you're traveling, it's covered. Most OEMs have that same package where you can take it to somewhere else. Used cars, I don't know how that works.
Well, it depends on the brand. It depends on the brand, the warranty company. From what I've seen so far, a lot of them are statewide because there are multiple dealerships that service that company. I always recommend to my customers, if you're going to purchase a warranty, because we don't service anything after the point of sale that's not a Subaru, just call and make sure that it's covered, just so you know that you're not going to drive all the way there. So if you're planning a trip, it might be good just to kind of scope out the area just in case something happens, call around to a couple places just on the off chance if something were to happen.
On the warranty, like what's the claim service on that? Because I've had people like get the warranty and then it was just a hassle to be able to use the warranty.
So typically when you take it into a dealership, they're working with the warranty company to see what's going to be approved. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I always just recommend, like if you're talking about what's going to be covered versus not covered, see if you can get a sample contract. That way you can see all that information. But typically the dealership kind of works on the behalf with the warranty company saying, hey, we've diagnosed this. This is what the repairs are that are needed. We see that you have this warranty. Is this going to be covered? So they're kind of partnering together to work that out.
And then like, what's that time process?
It depends. I personally just had an experience in December where it was right around Christmas and then we had New Year's. So depending on the situation, it could take a couple of days, could be a couple of weeks. It just depends on the process. In my example, they had to send a field rep out to actually look at my car to see if they were going to decide to cover the claim or not. So I don't know how common that is, but it is something that can happen. You can always see if the dealership maybe can offer you a loaner in the meantime, but it can take anywhere from a couple days to a couple weeks, I would say, just depending on what repairs are needed. And then you have to account for parts. Sometimes everything's not available right away, so that can kind of extend that process.
You said, like not to talk actual money when you're going in. I mean,
No, don't bring up how much you want to spend. Just say you're here to look at cars. And then once you get it narrowed down, so let's say it's your third visit in or whatever, and you're back looking at something, you go, well, now I'd like to look at this. Can you give me a price on this car today? Yeah, you don't want to open your hands up to them. Just say, I'm here looking. It's fine.
and
So
then you said that like when you do your 3 different dealerships comparison, you stick with the same car. I mean,
try to make it as close as possible. Yeah, it can be a different color, but that'll give you yeah, it just makes you feel better. And then you'll know when you're going into the dealerships, okay, I had a good that was nice, it wasn't pushy, or that was pushy. I don't really want to go in there again. Your spidey senses will come in.
And then they look, you think that they do match fairly well, like say you
perfect.
like,
Yeah, everybody wants to sell cars, so yeah.
Like see
and we're not offended when you send that to us. Believe me, we see it daily. So
if you come in and you say, well,
XYZ gave me this price for that car, and we'll say yes. And then you have to be careful because what will happen is state minimum. This is going to be hard to understand. State minimum you can pay in Ohio is $350. Ours are only $270 for dealer fees. So you can go clear up to 350 and above. So you want to make sure when you get the printout that they've got the price of the car, the taxes correct, because each county in Ohio is different. And then whatever their dealer fees are, because that's where the shenanigans can become afoot. So yeah, so there are different ways that they get to that. So you're sitting in Greene County right now. We're 6 3/4. Across the street is Clark. It's 7 1/4. Miami's that way. It's 7%. Montgomery's 7.5%. So you're taxed on where your residence is.
Oh, where you live and
Mhm.
where you're buying.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So you can't come here and buy a car and get a better tax rate. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Hamilton down in Cincinnati, 7 and 8, and there's some 8%ers up in
Mhm.
Cleveland now.
What
So
was
it's
your question?
residence, not your.
Right.
Yeah, it's where you,
Yep.
yeah.
If you buy a car out of state, it's logos.
So that's a whole different
Depends.
caboodle. So the states will have reciprocal agreements. And so we work with Indiana and Michigan. And Kentucky, if you're out of Kentucky here, you pay all your taxes when you go in and title it. So you need to be aware of that, because when you go to title your car, instead of being $60, whatever your car was, and if it's 6%, you're going to be looking at $2,500 when you title the car, because you've got to pay the taxes.
Mhm.
Yeah, so those are things that it depends on the states and where they
Yeah,
are.
they're all
There's
different.
Yeah, they're all different. Sure. Mm-hmm.
Just ask them for a printout.
Yeah, ask them for a price sheet, an out the door, it's OTD, out the door price sheet. And they should put on your name, the price of the car, the discount, whatever your dealer fees are, and your taxes. Then you take it home, and if you're going to finance it, you take it, you put it in a payment calculator, which is everywhere on the web, and you figure that out. One of the guys that works here, Nick, calls me and he goes, I'm buying this car, Susan. I said, send me the numbers. So I run the numbers for him. I go, there's $2,400 they're charging you that show up nowhere on this deal. Let me talk to the guy. He doesn't want to talk to you. I bet he doesn't want to talk to me.
Yeah.
He said, oh, I fat fingered that. I'm sorry. He was not sorry. But that's the kind, do your homework. There are more cars. Yeah, he hit it. He hit it in the financing charge. So I just, yeah, so there's a fine. So if you're at 3.9, it's going to cost you this amount to borrow that money for the 72 months. Ours are all simple interest loans, which means if you pay it off early, you don't pay that whole amount. If you run it the whole 72 months, 48 months, you pay that borrowing fee. They should show you that up front. That's federal law. Here's what it's costing you to borrow that money for this length of time. So those are the kind of things that you need to look at and make sure you're aware of. So
Yeah, I heard
yeah, yes, yeah. There's all kinds of, so that's why you want a description of what am I paying for. Claire, do you have a deal disclosure in your office? Can you make one up real fast and show them what it looks like from us? Do a Forester at 72 months. That way you can see what that looks like. So they're pretty close. So yeah, so if you pick a $40,000 car from us, a limited Forester, they're going to be within a couple $100. That may have floor mats and yours doesn't, or a body site, but it's going to be close enough that you can see the comparison. Yeah, yeah. And remember, there are other dealerships out there. If you don't like the way you were treated at this dealership, there are more dealerships out there. Go find the one. Look at the Google reviews. Help yourself see. Be careful. A lot of them are fake Google. We all know the fake Google reviews. So,
Did you have a question?
so it's going to be proprietary to the OEM. So you're going to have a base, something a little bit higher, something a little bit higher, and something a little bit higher. It'll be completely depending on that manufacturer of how it's set up. Ours goes base, premium, limited, touring. There's a bunch of other ones in there, but that's the basis of all those. So they made it easy for us. Anything within Subaru until this year, if it says limited on it, L is for leather, L is for limited, that means it's got leather in it. That is not true with other manufacturers, so.
Yeah, some other brands are like EX, EXL,
Yeah.
LE. Some like our premium versus a platinum is two totally different thing means totally different things. It just depends on the manufacturer. It's good to have like a if you have a general idea of what features you definitely want to have and you're unsure, you can at least ask like, "Hey, I'm looking for these features. Can you point me in the right direction on which car would have that?" That way you kind of know where
Mandatory
you're
heated
headed.
seat.
Exactly.
Where
Yeah.
do the mandatory heated seats start?
And moonroof.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
Have somebody cart you around.
I've heard
so
a
you can
heated
sit over there
steering
for a
wheel.
little
The
bit.
best thing since sliced bread is the heated steering wheel, so. Yeah, the heated, yeah.
Question about depreciation. So would a used car have more depreciation once you drive it off the lot versus a new car?
It depends. A lot of it's
Yeah.
already taken out of it, so it
Right.
depends on the model year and how many miles on it, so it's just, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
So you can tell if you lease, and nobody was really interested in leasing, which is fine, but you can tell how fast they're going to depreciate because they have a residual percentage. So our cars are typically between 60 and 75 on the residual, which means that car still in 3 years going to be worth between 60 and 75% of original cost. We'll see them from other dealerships at 45, 50. So, which means it's coming down a lot harder on that. So, leasing's cool. Just know what you're doing when you get into leasing. One little thing on, if you ladies weren't here, leasing, when you turn in a lease, if we buy it from you or you buy another car, lease another one, they waive the disposition fee, which is the turn-in fee. That fee can be anywhere from $300 to $1,200. So you're there to turn your car back in when you're done leasing it, and they say, well, where's your check for $1,200? Or if you lease another one, well, we'll waive that for you. Well, they've cut you because a lot of folks don't have the $1,200. So those are questions you need to ask if we've gotten into leasing. So
Also wear and tear because they will
they will
get
ding
you for that
yeah.
too.
Yeah, you just have to know what you're doing when you lease. So sure.
If we're to lease and then decide to buy the car at the end of the lease.
Sure, you can do that. So it's easy. So what will happen on the paperwork? Yeah, it will give you a price at the end of the lease. So let's say it was a $30,000 car at the end of the lease. It's $18,700. That's the price you would buy it out of. You will pay taxes on that and whatever finance charge, or you can write a check for it. But it'll be that plus the taxes. So, but you'll know all along what that residual value is. Yeah, when you sign the paperwork, it'll show you that number. No matter where you go. Yeah. If you don't see that, run. Something's not going right. So. And we'll be around if you want to just come up to Sam and I. She's sold some new cars too, so she's way better at used cars than I am. So if you need used cars questions,
give me too much credit.
Being like comfortable asking like your cosmetic issues, like having this fixed.
Yeah, we touched a little bit about that. Just address any of that stuff before you commit to anything. There's a WEO form. It basically just states we owe you. So let's say, for example, there were scratches on the car when you bought it because it hadn't been touched up yet. No problem. We'll get that taken care of for you. Write it out on a WEO. We'll give it to you. Schedule a time to come back. So cosmetic stuff for everywhere is going to be different. Usually it's car, sometimes it's based on the car year and things like that. We try to do a better job than most people just to make sure it's in good shape. But if there's anything concerning, like your heated seat isn't working, always try to be as thorough as you can. I know it's hard, especially when you're excited getting in cars because I've done it myself. But test everything if possible. Take your time on your test drive. Don't feel rushed. Make sure you're getting a good feel of the car. One thing I always urge people to do is not buy something before driving it, new or used, just in case. So you don't have buyer's remorse. Nobody wants that. It depends on the dealership.
Yeah.
It's really a case by case basis. It just depends. It's not a red flag. I've told people, if you take it home, see if it fits in your garage, things like that. So it's not really a bad thing. Well, you got to make sure it fits in there. You don't want to
Yeah.
get like something big and then you're like, crap, I can't fit it in my garage.
We
And I
have
want to
that
protect
here all the
you.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
So,
think it'll fit in my garage. I said, well, you definitely should take it home then and see, because that, if you
Yeah.
can't open the side doors, what you're getting now, that is not a good situation. So,
yeah. So it just depends on the dealership. Not everybody has that policy. So it's nice if you can, if you want to get a more of an idea of the car if you're not sure.
Besides checking the features, what else should you do on the test drive?
vary the speeds.
Yeah, definitely take it on the highway.
Listen
So
for
that way
noises.
you get city and highway driving. That way, and you want to also, as far as power goes, to make sure that the car has enough get up and go for you, depending on your, some people really want like a V6. Not everybody needs that, but just kind of go around, maybe go somewhere that you typically drive. I have people that do that, like, I'm going to take it home, do my daily route, my work route. Okay, just so you know, you're getting city, highway, test the radio, windows.
Air conditioning, heater,
Yeah, stop.
heated seats.
Yes.
Heated seats.
Stop somewhere and open up the doors, check the trunk, all that good stuff. Really, the test drive is for you to basically make sure that on a used car, at least, everything works as it should and you're comfortable in the car. Don't rush yourself on the test drive. I feel like a lot of people are nervous about it, which is understandable because it's not your car. You're taking something else out. But try to give yourself enough time. That way you can have an informed decision and make sure the car is truly comfortable. I have spoken to a lot of people with like back issues. Take it out for a little bit. Make sure that, if you're in the car for 20 minutes and the lumbar support isn't good enough for you, we can move on to something else.
So been looking for a new car. Mine's 11 years old. The technology has changed a lot.
Greatly.
Not young. It intimidates me. All of the new bells and whistles and all that. Is there what kind of support? Training?
So Subaru offers, whether you buy it from us or whoever, you buy whoever you're comfortable from. We'd love to have you buy from us, but you will get, the salesperson will go through it that day. You'll be completely overwhelmed. You'll go home and drive it for 2 weeks, and then we have a redelivery specialist, and he will call you and you will come back in for a tutorial. So you can come in and go back through the car. If needed, you can come in again and again and again. And we will not, you can call in, we get in cars. I got a new phone. Come in, we'll hook it up for you. Yes. Yes. It's changed a lot in the last 6-7 years. And that's where your computers come in. So Claire's passing out what it should look like when you get a deal disclosure. So you see the numbers and it'll show you on there what the finance charge is. So that's the kind of things you're looking for. You can go ahead, Claire.
Okay.
Go ahead,
I'm
Claire, take the
Claire.
floor.
I'm one of the salespeople here.
Speak
Product specialists. We like to call ourselves. So I'll just draw some attention to a few things on here that I've highlighted. Okay. So if you'll notice, the first thing I've highlighted is your discount. So the above price that sits above it is your base selling price. This is going to be what's called an MSRP. This is the manufacturer suggested retail. Okay. This is your sticker price. I have included a discount for the discount that we're offering on a car that's on our lot right now. Discounts can vary depending on your dealership and all of that sort of stuff, as they've already gone over. If you'll notice, there is a doc fee, a certificate of title, and a temporary tag fee. These are what we were talking about when we talk about dealer fees. Okay. So this is where they might try to add some things in, or that you can go up a little bit higher than we do here. Okay. But it's listed here for you to see. Then your taxes, which are, we decided for this dealership. So it will be different based on where you live. And then below it, it's your total cash price. Okay. So this is, if you don't put any money down, you don't have a trade in or anything like this, you just want to pay cash, this is going to be your price. Okay. So over on the right side, you're going to see some trade information, your trade allowance, trade payoff, and your deposit. Okay, this is where if you've discussed with the salesperson any sort of like any sort of agreement on what your trade is worth or any sort of down payment that you want to put on the car, this is where those numbers will show up. And then basically the balance due at the end will be this cash, total cash price on the left minus those numbers. Okay. At the bottom under financing terms, this is anything that you're going to finance. So I have highlighted 72 monthly payments, and then the amount that it would be. It's a little high because there's no down payment or anything like that. So some places will require a down payment, but we currently don't. So so that's where you can do sometimes a 48-month lease, or you can adjust the terms to kind of fit your lifestyle and your financial needs. And then the APR at the last one I've highlighted is 4.9%. So that's just going to tell you the rate it's going to cost you to purchase the money from the bank, basically. Okay. The finance charge above it is also going to tell you how much you're going to pay the bank for the privilege of borrowing their money. So, do you have any questions about this, what we would call a deal disclosure or an out the door price quote? Yes.
Down, does it vary if you're buying a used car versus a new car?
For like money down?
Yeah.
So that is never really anything required by the dealership. It's typically the bank. So like if the bank only wanted to allow you to borrow $10,000 and your total out the door price was 15, they would require the 5 down. It's different for every person. Sometimes they don't request that. It just depends on everybody's kind of individual financial situation.
Is there a good rule of thumb?
There really isn't. It's
Really,
your financial. It's
kind
the
of a
level
case
of
by
your
case,
debt is what
yeah.
they're looking at. How much income you bring in and how much debt do you already have, and whether they think you can afford it or not. So
yeah, like if you already have like a higher debt to income and they just want to shrink the amount that they're willing to lend you, they may require some money down on your end just to limit the amount of money you're borrowing.
but you should see something like this from when you ask for what's the out the door price. You want to see this because then it's got it on their letterhead and you know what you're paying.
And this is, I mean, we will send this to you electronically. It'll look just like this. It's just a PDF form, or we'll give it to you in person if you're here. And so this kind of just lays out any sort of financial part of your decision that should be going in. So what this means is when you get the final contract for your car and you're signing for the monthly payments, this is the number it should say. If it says anything else, something has gone wrong.
Or you've added something or
they've
taken
added
something.
or you're missing something that you wanted to have, or they've forgotten to put like your warranty in, for example, or something. If it's lower than what you're expecting, or if it's higher, that means they've added something in. So keep a record of this or write it down in a sticky note so that when you go in to sign the actual contract, you know exactly what it should look like, and double check those numbers and make them go through every line of the contract with you too. You know, like then all the numbers and all that, you can say, what is all of this, and make sure it matches what's on here.
That's called a sample contract.
Deal disclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's called a deal disclosure or an out the door price quote,
Yeah.
but we usually get what you mean if you say that. So we'll not super picky on the terms. So you come in, you say, I've got this price quote, we'll know what you mean.
Well, every manufacturer's will pretty much.
It will look like that. It'll sometimes some will show, it's called a 9 block where they'll have 3 different financing rates if you did longer times or lease rates on there, but you will have numbers that shows the price of the car and your taxes and what the fees are. So, which is what you're really, because you can play around with down payments. So
It's a
If
plug.
someone was doing something sketchy, it's like, where would they look for that?
So it'll be on the contract, not on this.
Yeah.
If this is why this is important to make sure you know. Yes. Yeah.
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 When we say that your contract number should look just like here, if there's something on your contract that's not on here, then that's what you're looking for, basically. Yeah, because even when we add in a warranty, if you choose to get a bumper to bumper warranty or something like that, that will show up on here too. So that's the only time where you might see something on your contract that you don't see on here is if you've decided to get a warranty after they've printed this for you or something, in which case you can have them print you a new one, an updated one with your updated numbers. Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead.
When, like trade-in vehicle,
Mhm.
stuff like that. So, I know that's very, just, you know, depending upon what you're trading in.
Right.
So is that a place to worry about when, like, the trade payoff?
So you would put the trade payoff. So you have to know what your trade. So if they're giving you 15,000 for your car and your payoff is 12,000, you'd have 3,000 in equity that could go through lowering your payment. If you owe more, so if they're giving you 15, you owe 18, then you're negative into it. So you've got negative equity. You may still get financed, but that's, you know, something. Yeah, and it'll be very clear.
Is that another gray area?
No, that's hard because that's pretty much laid down because you'll have to get what's called a 10-day payoff from your bank that shows what it's, because there's interest, so what it is in 10 days, and they'll put that number and then whatever your payoff is on, or whatever your trade is on.
And then another thing, when you see the commercials of, you know, Truck Week or whatever, 0% financing and all of that stuff, how is that? Is that only on leases or?
No, and you have, so read the fine print again, because
the commercial pops up and you're like, 0%.
yeah, 0% is usually if you have a certain credit score, which is normally 700, 710, and you'll get to 0% or higher.
Depends on the bank for us.
Yeah. And then the 0% should be good for all takers. So, and usually they don't require any money down on 0%. Sometimes they do. So just there'll be a box right below it and it'll have a disclaimer and it'll say, oh, 0% if you put $3,400 down. You'll see that on leases all the time because they want to make the leases look attractive. So they'll $299, well, $7,000 down.
Is the 0% only on leases?
No, lease is a whole different thing.
Okay.
It's money factor. You don't want to get in there. Yeah.
Like, and I know they say qualifying people.
Right, and that's the credit score.
Right, and I feel like it's kind of like I don't say a bait switch, but you know,
No, it shouldn't be. You should be able to go in there and get, when we were running 0%, if you walked in here and your credit score was over 700, it's 0%. So.
Yeah, it's good to know.
So it's usually when they're sitting on a lot of cars and they have to move the metal. So they've overproduced.
Or previous model years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or something, you know, they'll, you know, like that. But
One thing I had mentioned kind of at the beginning, I don't know if you guys were here for that part, is to just keep an eye out on what your credit score is. Like use Credit Karma, even though that's not 100% accurate because there are different versions of credit scoring. But it's a good ballpark. So, you know, like, hey, I'm going in, my credit scores, you know, tier 1, I'm probably going to qualify for these interest rates. And I think most manufacturers, and I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure we have it on our website. You can check under like finance and incentives. There's usually a tab you can look and see. But again, you got to read everything because it'll have details in there, things like that.
Is dealership still going to negotiate any of the applicable price, or do they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're still
Typically,
making
yes.
the
Yeah.
deal
Oh, yeah.
That's, you know, I don't want them to come, well, we already given you
Yeah.
0%.
No.
You're good.
Well, that's where your spidey senses and you go, I'm going to somebody else. There are other dealers, you know, so yeah. Awesomely. Oh, one.
So our car is 11 years old. I think Carfax said it's like valued 2,500. Is there ever a certain amount where car dealership's like, oh, it's only worth 1,000?
Depends on the dealership. We do, so for us personally, if it's an auction bound car, so if the car needs more work than what it's worth fixing to resell, usually it will go to the auction. One thing to keep in mind with a lot of the online stuff, it's always good to actually talk to somebody at a dealership and schedule an appraisal because a lot of the times there's information missed in that auto-generated stuff and it may be totally wrong.
Yeah, it could be worth more.
Yeah.
Could be worth
I talk
less.
to people all the time.
Yeah.
They're like, this number is too low. And I'm like, well, this is also like an auto-generated thing. Why don't you come? We can actually get a good look at the car. We can see it in person, be able to put a firm number on it as it sits instead of just kind of entering it in. It's good to kind of get a ballpark that way. But if you're actually wanting a firm number on your car, I would schedule an appointment so you have a good idea of what that actually looks like.
Yeah, because it is literally, they're throwing a dart at the car. They're just
Mhm.
taking the model year and how many miles is on and going, we think it's worth in this range. You could be at the bottom or you could be at the top
Right.
of that range.
It
You
could
just don't
be-
need till they see it. So
Yeah, you could have like the whole left side.
who knows? You may
know,
have the
or-
right diamond in the rough and it's
Right,
worth
it could
way
be
more.
in super great condition.
Yeah.
It can fall anywhere. So they're kind of a good guide in that way, but it's always good to have somebody put their hands on it just so you can get an actual idea of like a firmer number on that.
So what did you mean by like auction cars? Someone tried to bring one.
So if it's something like, let's say you had to tow it in, it's probably, depending on what it is, usually those are cars that we end up just sending to an auction. We're not going to fix those and resell those to another customer because they require more work than what the car is actually worth. So a lot of times, and it varies on the car make, you could expect $100. You could expect anywhere from that to $1,500 more than that. It just depends. It's an individual type situation. But that is a scenario that does happen.
Or you just want it out of your driveway. You
Yeah.
know, I've got 4 cars sitting there. Will you take this one? Sure. So you're buying a car and you're like, but I've got this extra $100 car. Sure, bring it over. We'll send it
Yeah.
to the auction, clear out your driveway for you. You would be surprised how often that happens. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
If there are people that don't want to deal with it, they don't
Yeah.
want to sell it outright. They just want it, they want it off their plate.
They don't
So
want
they're like, hey, will you
People
take
come
this?
to their house looking at the cars. So,
Yeah.
it's easier just to trade it in,
Mhm.
be done with it. Or you can give it to Goodwill, one of
Yeah,
the
you can always
charities as
donate it.
well. Awesome. There's food over there. We'll be here if you have questions. Grace has some cool things.
Some
She's going to do
closing
the raffle.
statements.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for coming. We really appreciate you taking the time to meeting with us. I hope you guys got everything you wanted out of it. And like Sam and Susan said, they'll be here to answer questions. You can also ask Sydney and Claire. They're 2 of our product specialists here as well. Any of us come up, ask us any questions. We're here to help. And also after this class, if you are looking back at your notes or the itinerary and you have more questions, even if you're not buying a car from us, give us a call.